best as you can, and please welcome to the stage, all the way from Galveston, Texas, Mr. Hamilton Loomis!
Mike Moses presents Art and Soul of the City, bringing you the diverse talents of our region. This week, Art and Soul of the City presents Texas musical artist Hamilton Loomis.
Lord, what have I got myself into? Somebody tell me what I'm supposed to do. She make me crazy, she hurts my mind, but it feels so good I come back every time. She's been taking everything I got. I can't stand it, but I can't stop. I surrender and I don't know why. This has got to be the best, worst day of my life.
People ask me a lot how I would describe my music, and that's kind of a difficult thing because it's sort of like a product of all the music I grew up listening to. I like to describe it as like you take a pot and you make a broth out of blues, and then you add all these other ingredients like rock and soul and funk and pop, and you sort of mix it all together and make this gumbo. Okay. That's the best way I could describe it. It's kind of like, if I had to put a name to it, I might say modern Texas soul music, maybe.
Modern Texas soul music.
Something like that, you know. Definitely rooted in blues, but definitely more modern.
If you go to like Amazon.com and found your CD, and you know sometimes they like to put like other listeners that like Hamilton Loomis also chose, who would Hamilton say they should choose or has something similar to your sound, even though it's not quite the same, but would be similar in your opinion?
That's a great question because there are a lot of artists that I respect nowadays that are sort of doing the same thing that I'm doing as far as blending styles and maybe taking an older style and modernizing it for younger generations.
How long have you been playing?
I've been playing music since I was a little kid. I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I don't really even remember, but I was fortunate. I grew up in a musical family. Both my parents were musicians, and my dad was a bass player, and there were always instruments around the house. So I was in a great environment growing up. In fact, my parents and I sang together when I was a teenager. We sang like doo-wop tunes, and we sang three-part harmonies. That's where I learned to harmonize.
So when you say sing together, would that be at churches or bars? Or?
Actually, yeah, at venues and clubs and bars and stuff. That's where I started getting a lot of experience early on, playing on stage, you know. Yeah.
At what point, since you say music was always around you, at what point did it transition from it being fun, a hobby, to, hey, I can actually get paid for this?
My first gig, I do remember, I was in middle school. I was 12 years old. Back then, I was playing drums, actually, a little bit more than I was playing, guitar. And it was, I was in middle school, man. It was just a hobby for me at that point.
Was it a way to get girls?
I'll segue into that because that's a great question and kind of a funny one too. I remember I was getting ready for bed. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and my dad just busts in my room and he's like, "Hey Hamilton, you want to go play the drums?" And I thought he was joking. And I'm like, I'm 12 years old. I'm going, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, there's a band, a friend of mine. His band is playing down the street, and their drummer didn't show up, but the drum kit's there. Do you want to go play a set with them? Because he's going to be late." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I went and played at this just smoky bar, and they're like, "Kid, what tunes do you know?" And I'm just like, "Well, I know a few from the radio." And they're like, "Do you know any, whatever, Doobie Brothers? Yeah, let's play China Grove." And I'm like back there like playing, and I wasn't very good, but yeah, and they handed me a $20 bill.
So that was your first paying gig?
Yeah, that was my very first paying gig. And I'm like, man, I could get used to this. It's so funny because I was so focused on it and became so serious about it that I didn't even have a social life when I was in high school. I would come home and just do my homework and literally lock myself in my room for about 5 or 6 hours and just do nothing but just listen to my old vinyl. I'm on the tail end of that generation. you know, listening to records and blues and classic rock and you know, and just, you know, learning and just, I was just so into it. And by the time I was like 16 or 17 years old, you know, my parents were like, don't you want to go out with your friends? Don't you want to go see a movie? And don't you want to go see so-and-so? And I'm just like, no, that's okay. I'll just sit here and play. It's just always really focused on music. And
I'm way out front, I used to be way back. So try to keep up, cause baby I'm moving fast, cause I got a brand new bag. Well, I was stuck in a rut, now I'm in a groove. I was going nowhere, and now I'm on the move. So get out the way, cause I'm gonna prove I'm in a groove. Well, I was stuck in a rut, now baby I'm in a groove.
Now back to Art and Soul of the City, sponsored by Frontier Communications.
you know, what I've always said is that it's one thing to listen to music and it's another thing to experience music. And that's what live music is all about, because you know, when you listen to music or just watch music on TV or on YouTube or a video or something like that, there's an energy that's missing, you know?
Absolutely.
And when you're at a show and everyone's there, there's an energy and a synergy between the artists and the audiences that you just really can't find anywhere else. And I love feeling that energy and working off that energy.
Now, how many current members are in your band?
There are 4 of us.
There's 4 of you?
Yeah.
And the current lineup has been together for about how long?
About 3 years.
About 3 years?
I've got 3 of probably the strongest musicians in the Texas Gulf Coast right now. When I was in college, I went to college at St. Thomas University in Houston. One of my degrees, I actually have 2 degrees that I don't use. It's really interesting. It was a big crossroads in my life because I actually graduated with 2 degrees and I'm just like, you know, this isn't what I want to do, and I just put them in a drawer and I'm like, I just want to play full time, you know. I had always been playing part time, but this was an opportunity to really just make music a full time career, you know, right when I got out of school.
Now when you was in school, were you involved in any of the music programs at school?
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I was in band and choir, and it's funny, I did these, you know, school musical activities during the week, and then on the weekends, even as a teenager, yeah, I was playing in clubs, you know,
right,
guitar, you know, with my own band and learning and you know, kind of paying dues, so to speak.
How supportive was family in general? They were musicians. You've gone to school, you've gotten these degrees, but how supportive when you just made that decision that this is going to be my life?
I consider myself very fortunate. My family was always supportive, and mainly because they understood they were musicians as well, and they said, you know, whatever you choose to do, we'll be behind you. You know, art really is a subjective thing, and I love how people can interpret things differently. Earlier we were talking about poetry and how sometimes you can read a poem and it means something to you, and then when you see it performed or hear it performed, it means something different. Well, songs are definitely that can be the same case with songwriting. You know, I love writing songs and telling stories and talking about familiar topics that, you know, people can relate to. You know, and as an artist too, I try to get creative with what I write. Maybe even putting something out there that might, on the surface, mean one thing and it actually means another. You know, like for instance, I've got a tune on one of my CDs, Ain't Just Temporary, called You Won't Get Away This Time. My dad had this old vintage bass that he sold to somebody, and when he and my mom were about to get married, she's like, what happened to that bass? And he said, well, I sold it. And she's like, well, that bass was so much a part of our, she's like, I'm not going to marry you until you get that bass back.
Wow.
And he had to buy it back from the guy for more than he sold it to him for.
Of course.
So she would marry him.
That was long before eBay and Amazon.
Oh, way before eBay. And that's what that song is about, you know? Like, I let you get away, and I was talking about a guitar, man.
Oh, wow.
So, who knows? You know, it could be one thing, yeah.
Now back to Art and Soul of the City, sponsored by Frontier Communications.
She looks like you. Give me comfort from the madness you put me through. I got a voodoo doll, baby, yes I do.
Tell me this real quick. We talked about the live performance. You've got how many albums out currently?
5.
You have 5 albums.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I look at the young folks that have their MP3 players, the iPods and all that, and I oftentimes hear all the music that they've purchased being somewhere on the cloud. For me, I still enjoy the old-fashioned CD because I can then burn it onto my computer and have it accessible. But if my computer crashes, I still have that CD.
But the funny thing is, see, I have old school sensibilities when it comes to certain aspects of music as well. Yes, I like a physical product. You know, I still have all my old vinyl, okay? There's a cool factor in, like, you know, vinyl or,
right,
you know, physical product. And I mean, I like reading liner notes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But now I heard that a lot of the download sites are including PDFs of the liner notes. But as an artist, you know, iTunes and other download sites, they're all legitimate, and artists get royalties from that.
Though this is your first time in Fort Wayne, we're learning about your music. You're currently on this looks like a big major tour right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And it looks like it's kind of a worldwide tour.
Well, this one, we only have a couple of weeks in Texas after we're done with this tour, and we're going to be going to Europe and England for a month. There's a great appreciation for American roots music over in England and
you know,
Europe.
It's funny you say that because we've had Larry McCray on the show, we've had Ronnie Baker Brooks, and they've all told us about how much the European culture loves the American blues scene.
Well, they're very academic about it too. They study it, and we have to understand as Americans, you know, when it's here, we sort of tend to take it for granted, and maybe more so than a different country where they're kind of viewing it from a long distance away, where it's maybe a little more special to them, or
right,
you know what I mean, because they don't have it in their country. And that's one of the reasons why I teach workshops. I do, you know, workshops for high schools and kids, you know, coming up who are musicians. And one of the things I tell them is that all of our popular music stems from blues. In fact, in the 50s, you know, early rock and roll, I'm talking Chuck Berry, Little Richard, you know, rock and roll was just sped up 12-bar blues.
Right.
You know, and then enter guys like Bo Diddley, who took the rhythm and again merged styles, you know, rock and roll and blues and these rhythms that, you know, people weren't exposed to,
right,
and made it his own style. And he was such a great mentor to me. You know, I had the pleasure of knowing him for the last 16 years of his life. And he encouraged me to be original and do my own thing. And I really took that to heart, so.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, I believe I read somewhere that they call you a protege of Bo Diddley.
Yeah.
Is that a good name for you, or a good title to say, protege? Or?
I'm fortunate to even have known him because he was a very generous person, and he gave me a lot of advice and a lot of spotlight. We recorded together, we did a lot of shows together. He was just very, very encouraging, and it just meant the world to me. He even presented me with one of his signature red square guitars.
Now we be playing that one tonight here?
No, it's kind of closely guarded at my home, but it is featured on my live DVD, Live at the Hub.
Here's how we do it, y'all. Just standing here, I'm just trying to explain. I got my soul on the line. Won't you listen to me say? I wanna say I wanna be a better man, and I'll do the best I can to give my love to you. Yes, I will.
I'm sure you can tell us some different experiences you've had on the road. I mean, things that you can give a young Hamilton Loomis, if you will, someone that's watching.
Well, the things that come to mind are that if you want to make music your career, you have to be dedicated, you have to be very passionate about it, and you have to be positive. You have to love what you do, and you have to put in the work, because the rewards, the payoff, is wonderful, because you get to do what you love and what you're passionate about and reach people with music, and you can be a positive influence on people's lives. That's what drives me. That's what keeps me going. But I remember one time when we were actually doing a Europe tour. We were in the UK, and I remember we had 2 days off, and we were down in Kent, which is southeast of London. And we get down to Dover, where the ferries are, and evidently the French fishermen were on strike, and they had a blockade on the France side, and none of the ferries were running. And we were like, oh, well, what are we going to do? And so we tried to find a room, but because of all the people that were stranded in England trying to get over, there were no hotel rooms, bed and breakfasts, or anything, and we had to end up sleeping in our minivan.
Now I mentioned Larry McCray earlier, and you tell me that one of your tunes he actually plays, he's made famous.
Yeah.
Which tune was that again?
It's called Get My Blues On.
Get My Blues On, okay.
I tend to think that he actually did it better than I recorded it. He's just a great artist, fantastic singer, and very gifted guitarist, and it almost sounds like that tune was meant for him.
Who out there in the industry is someone that you look to and you would love to collaborate with?
Oh my gosh, there's too many to name.
Just give me 3 names.
What's really awesome about my situation and growing up in Texas is that I was able to collaborate with some immensely talented blues veterans who were around when I was a teenager, mainly Johnny Clyde Copeland and Albert Collins, Gatemouth Brown, Joe Guitar Hughes, and Bo Diddley also. I was able to work with those guys and learn so much from those guys, and it was just amazing experience.
Now, being from Texas, which town from Texas are you from?
I was born and raised in Galveston Island, yeah.
Okay. What's the difference between Delta blues to the other blues, and if you were to describe, or is there a difference?
That's one great thing about Texas is it is such a large state, and there's so many influences. You've got Louisiana, coming in, and then you've got all these different styles that I don't think, for me personally, that you can pinpoint this is Texas blues. Like, there's not just one sound. There's many different aspects, to it. One gentleman in particular who I learned a lot from was Gatemouth Brown, and I got to play with him, and he was from Louisiana. And if you ever saw his show, he played. He just played the hell out of the guitar, but he played the viola and the violin as well, and just so much soul. And he would sort of blend styles too. He would do like calypso, and then he would do jazz, and then he would do straight blues and all this stuff. And when people would call him a blues musician, he would get mad and he would say, I'm not a blues musician, I'm just a musician.
Okay.
I mean, people ask me, how do I describe my music? And when I try to tell them about the different styles, I just say, you know what, it's just Hamilton Loomis music.
There you go.
Here it is. I really hope you like it, because I love making the music.